Hi friends, it is Ace and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to talk about my fall knitting and crochet plans. Many of them are already underway, but I thought I'd do a more comprehensive video. You've seen some of them are going to be new for you, but I've seen several folks do this online, and so I thought I would put together my plans. The reason I'm doing this, and I have a more extensive list of projects than I normally would in, a 2 to 3 month span, is because I'm using the rest of my baby bonding, and so I'm going to have a little bit more time on my hand because I'm not going to have to go to my normal 9 to 5 for the next few weeks. And so I said, let's get a lot accomplished when it comes to knitting and crocheting, in addition to spending time with my family. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So first we will go through the whips, and then I will go through the projects I have planned, and I'll kind of talk through why I think I can get through most of these projects before mid-December. That's kind of my goal for all of these. Many of them will get completed probably in the next week or two, and some of them will get cast on later in the fall. And so the first project I have on my needles is a knitting project, and it is the Sophie Shawl by PetiteKnit, and I am almost at the halfway point. I have about that much yarn left before I work on the decreases for the shawl. This yarn is Dream in Color Classy. It's 100% superwash merino in the colorway Burr. And so this is what it looks like hanged up. So this is my second skein. It is a worsted weight, and so the pattern calls for 2 strands held together to equal worsted weight, but I didn't think I was going to use this yarn for much else in my plans. And so I really actually like the way it's working up as a knitted object in garter stitch. And so I'm probably at 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, 12. I'm at about 52 rows right now. I think with what I have left here, I'm probably going to be able to do maybe 2 more sets of increases. And so I'm aiming to get at least the medium size shawl, if not the large shawl, but I'm going to start decreasing as soon as I hit pretty close to half. I was hoping to get halfway last week, but I was really focused on another project, and so I didn't get as far as I had planned last week. So my goal really this week is to finish up getting halfway and starting towards that third quarter, between 50 and 75% done. So I'm really happy with the way it's turned out. I actually had a little slight crisis with a drop stitch, and I am still very new to knitting that I didn't know how to actually fix it right then and there. And because of the edging, it was causing a little difficulty, and so I actually pulled out a few rows back to where the drop stitch was, and then was able to kind of weave with a smaller needle back on. I got everything back on. It looked good, and we were good for there, but happy with the way it's turning out. I'm hoping that the yarn softens a little bit in blocking. I think it will, because the next project I'm going to show you, the project softened so much in blocking that I actually love the way it feels now. So that is the Sophie Shawl by PetiteKnit, and this is the first fall project. I'm hoping to get this done by the end of the month. So it is now the middle of the month, and so I have about 2.5 weeks left. I think it's totally doable. I'm trying to just keep about 2 projects going at one time. And so this will hopefully be done by the end of October. So I'll have this in my October, hopefully, I'll have this in my October roundup podcast episode, like a regular podcast episode. And so, yeah. The second object, whip that I have, and it's almost not a whip, but this is the full fade cowl test that I'm doing for Jennifer Lovett at Violet Loops, and it is off the hooks, and all I have to do is weave in about 1.5 million ends of yarn. This was a really fun project once I got going. It is Tunisian crochet, which everybody that I've talked to thinks this is knitting, and they're so amazed when they're like, that's crochet. And so this is Tunisian crochet in the round, and the pattern calls for at least 800 yards of either DK or fingering weight yarn. The pattern will be out November 1st, so definitely pay attention to either her socials or my social, because I will definitely be posting more. I actually just posted a reel recently talking about all the ends that I'm going to have to weave in, because the fun part is if you put this on, and it's hard to put on when I have my glasses and my hair up, but if I put it on, and, you know, I tuck in a few things. Check the neckline. You don't necessarily know that there's ends that need to be weaved in. And so, but because it's Tunisian crochet, there's only one right side of the project. It's just like knitting where there's a right side and a wrong side. And so I will have to go in and weave these ends in to some degree. I'm also not too concerned about how carefully I weave them in. I might just tie some knots and weave in a little bit and then call it a day. But man, once this thing came off the blocking mats, it softened up so much. And I really love the drape that it produced by blocking. It really shows off, you know, because when you style it and you like kind of play around with the fluff, you can play around kind of with how much it kind of does these waves and drapes. And so the colors really stand out. This is Montana Crochet's Spring Fade Minis. I use 12 colors, so that's the 12 colors in the fade in the pack. The 12th color is this. It's a really dark green. It's going to probably be really hard to tell. I didn't use too much of it because I thought I was going to use a little bit here, but I really didn't want green next to my neck. That was the whole reason why I started with the red. So I actually ended up using, it's not there, a mini, because you're supposed to you know, hold back some yarn so that you can do your edges. Did I do that? No. But I found a pretty close match in my minis just to help with like the trim up here. And you can honestly probably can't even tell it's a different yarn, but the trim up here, it's just one row, and it's a different yarn. And this is, I think, woolberry fiber. It's just from some mini set, probably, I think one of the holiday ones from either 2021, because I think that's when I got woolberry almost probably for the first time. And so I was able to do that, so that way I didn't have to use green. So I actually probably have 10 grams of the green skein left, but green is not my favorite color, so I was okay with making sure that, you know, being done with that. So next steps is just kind of weaving in all the ends. The test is due on October 23rd. I am aiming to weave in the ends the next few days and then get some finished object photos taken to give to Jen and eventually put up on my socials. So definitely be on the lookout for an announcement on Instagram with some more information. I've been posting a lot lately on the full fade cowl because I've just been loving how it's been turning out, and it is such an easy project. I say that confidently, knowing that I've only done two and a half Tunisian crochet projects, and this was my third. And this was Tunisian crochet in the round, which is a new skill set, but once you kind of get the hang of it, of using both ends of a double-ended hook, because you have to use a double-ended crochet hook, you either use like a solid wooden one, or you can use two interchangeables with a cord in between. I chose the interchangeable method. I feel like that's better because you can pick up more stitches and go around almost to the beginning, like probably only that much where I couldn't pick up, and then do my return pass. And I felt that that made this project fly by so fast. Like I said, it took me a while just to get up and running the first few rows, and that was more out of just sheer frustration for me of not getting it, or I was just messing up, like it would twist or something. Not a pattern issue, totally a me issue. And so but once I got it going and it started growing, it's so yummy. I have a couple other mini sets and fades that I'm contemplating doing another one of these. And so not soon, but if you love the juniper cowl, which we all know I do, I have two over here. I've made a third that I gave to someone. I've made a mini for my daughter. I have another one kind of in my queue when I want an easy project. If you love the Juniper Cowl by Toni Lipsey of TL Yarn Crafts, you will love this. It's a great way to stash bust your minis. It's a great way to showcase coordinating skeins, fades. I'd love to see this all in one solid, really fun colors or speckles or variegation to really showcase the yarn. So there will be more of these in my future, probably not as big, because I can't remember, but I think that the regular pattern calls for 8 or 9 skeins. I knew I was going 12 right away, because I wanted to use the full fade. And so it's super customizable in that length. So if you want to do it a little bit shorter, you can. If you want to do it a little bit longer, definitely something that you can do. So this is the Full Fade Cowl by Jennifer Lovett. This is whip number 2 in my fall knitting and crochet plans, and I will be done certainly by the end of October. So that will be 2 projects done by the end of October, on my list for fall knitting and crochet. And so gosh, just admire this, like this fade. Montana Crochet, I will say, her fades are to die for. Like, they are so gorgeous, and there's no thinking. Like, I don't have to think, like, does this go? I just bought the pack, and it's gonna go. So there we go. The next project, work in progress, is my Kima Cardi. And I think this is another one that I can get done by the end of October, because once I have weaved in all the ends this week for the full fade cowl, I will now have a second project that I can kind of work on and have time for that. And so I actually already have a lot of the pieces done. And so I don't want to mess up my setup. So this is my back panel, and I did this a while ago. This is my back panel, and I have two front panels, and one of them needs to be redone. I need to just pull it apart. I thought I could make it work, and honestly, if I was really trying to be the queen of good enough, I could just call it a day and do an extra row of the pattern. That would make up for the fact that my ribbing was a little too short. I missed a stitch on my ribbing, so like this isn't the exact math, but say it was a 4-stitch ribbing, I only did 3, and so I'm a little bit short, and so I'm gonna have to pull it up, and it's really sad. But I want, you know, I want to make sure that putting this together is an enjoyable product. So this Kima Cardi is a pattern, I think it's still free, from Toni Lipsey of TL Yarn Crafts, and I'm using, don't mind me, but I'm using Hue and Me in the colorway Love Song. It's this really pretty pinky mauve, and what's great about the Hue and Me yarns is that all of the skeins coordinate with each other. So I actually have a bunch of Hue and Me, so that I think I'm going to do maybe another blanket, like a chunky blanket. In fact, this blanket that I'm sitting on is the Hue and Me, and so you can kind of, you know, just make your own adventure kind of when it comes to color. And so this is the Hue and Me. I don't remember how many skeins I've used or how much total that is. I will have that kind of when I have the finished object. But I really want to get this done. So I think this is totally doable to get done by the end of October. So that my 3 whips essentially that I have currently as part of my fall knitting plans are going to be done in the next 2.5 to 3 weeks. And so that really opens the door for some new cast-ons and new projects. And so I want to talk you through some of them. And now I realize that I just missed one. Okay. So the first new whip that I'm going to cast on once I get through those 3 whips is a Westmont Shawl from Toni Lipsey. I've actually already made it. You can't see it, but it's right here. Maybe you can, but it's right here. I made that earlier this spring, and my mom has asked for a white, not cream white, not eggshell, not ivory, not natural, white shawl for her to wear with her formals, because she is a member of Eastern Star, and she's going to be leading Eastern Star for the 2024-2025 year in her state. And so super excited for her. And so I got this Laine du Nord Dolly 125 yarn, and I was really excited. And then I went to put it in my Ravelry stash and realized it's DK weight, and the pattern calls for fingering weight. So a little disappointed, but I think I can make it work. So what I'm gonna do is probably cast on the project. It's Tunisian crochet. I'm gonna cast it on, do some rows. I'm gonna go up a hook size or 2, see if I'm liking it, and then if I like it, I'm just gonna use this and go with it. if I don't like it, I'm going to see if I can exchange the ones I haven't opened for a different yarn at my local yarn store where I got this. And so, yeah, it is Laine du Nord, made in Italy. It is color number 1, and it's 100% unshrinkable wool. And so I don't know what else I would use this for. So I'm hoping that my local yarn store will let me exchange it if it's not going to work for my project. So, because she had a bunch of other, like, I know Knitting for Olive, fingering weight, but I feel like it wasn't quite as weight, but we'll see. So the first whip that I'm going to cast on in early November will be the Westmont Shawl by Toni Lipsey. The second whip that I am cast on, I've actually started, like, I wouldn't say I cast it on, but I pulled out the yarn and wanted to see, like, if it will work, is I found the Love Note by Tincanknits online. I think it was Professor Pearl who got me onto that pattern. But when I was looking at this pattern and what project I might want to start next, because I do want to work on a knitted tee, and what really attracted me to this pattern versus some of the other patterns that I'm absolutely in love with is they have baby, infant, toddler, children's, you know, the gamut of sizes. And so I figured I could practice doing a 1 to 2 size for my daughter, for toddlers 1 to 2, and then work out some of the kinks and practices on her object, because she will grow out of it, and whereas mine would be like a semi, like, permanent place in my wardrobe. And so by making a baby, infant, toddler size of it, I'll be able to practice. So the 2 yarns that I pulled out for this in my stash is Diablo's mohair, nylon, and acrylic, and the loops and threads will like Simile Lane. It's a super fine yarn in 85% acrylic, 15% nylon, and so in the color Teal Lake. And so I'll show you, because I've already balled up stuff, so it's not in the skein still. So I made 2 skeins, or 2 balls, because something in me thought that this yarn just feels a little too thin. It does say super fine, and the pattern calls for fingering and mohair, like lace, held together. But so I did it in 2 balls, knowing that because it comes with over 600 yards in a skein, that with her size, I would only need one ball if it was truly the correct weight that I needed for the pattern. But I cast on the appropriate needles, the number of stitches with 1 strand held together and 1 strand of the fingering weight and 1 strand of the mohair held together. So this is the mohair, and then this is the fingering weight, and so they look great together. And I have the right needles and that the pattern calls for, and I can't even make it around. So it's definitely not going to, I was just trying to do gauge swatch. It's definitely not going to hit gauge. And so that's why I have the 2 balls. I'm going to see if, by doing that, since it's classified as a super fine, that will then make the DK weight that you're supposed to get. And so I'm going to try that, and then hopefully that will be good enough. If not, I do have a backup plan. I do have some Hobie Amigo in a very similar steel blue that I could use. And that one might be a little too thick, but I might be able to just adjust my needle size. So I want to practice the Love Note in a toddler size for my daughter. That way I can make an adult version for myself and work out any of the kinks. So that is my, I guess, second cast on project that I haven't cast on technically yet. I was just doing some swatching. And so my fifth project overall for the fall. So the next project that I'm going to do is the Fairbanks Shawl from Toni Lipsey of TL Yarn Crafts. I feel like that's just, I do a lot of her patterns. I love her patterns. I love how she writes them. It's a colorful stripe. It can be done, it's done in DK, but there is a modification that you can do it in fingering weight. And I'm going to use the Surella X Toni Lipsey collection that came out this spring. And I'm going to use 2 skeins of the Surf City in nylon sock, which is 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon. And then I'm going to use the corresponding minis to break up this. So I'm going to do stripes of minis. And I'm going to use most of the minis except for the colors that are like very similar to the Surf City, these like neutrals. I'm probably not going to use those 2. And then this pink. I think that won't pop as much. But I'm going to use most of the minis for this. I'm just going to make a huge, gigantic shawl, and I think it will be great. These mini sets are also nylon sock, 80/20. And so I just love this colorway. That's actually the colorway that this is here. This is the same yarn, but it's the silk DK. I actually thought that the silk DK came out so good. Honestly, much brighter than the sock, just the way that the yarn took it. But I think that this is gonna make a gorgeous shawl. That shouldn't be too hard. Like, I was looking at that pattern. That hopefully will be very quick for me and pretty mindless. And so that's why I think even with all these minis, I think I can get that done by the middle of December. One of the next projects after that I'm going to be working on is a trio of Christmas stockings. Yes, it's a fall knit video, but I gotta make it in the fall to have it for Christmas. So I'm gonna make 3 Christmas stockings. I actually found this pattern. It's on Ravelry, so I will link it before, but it's called the Braided Cables Christmas Stocking by Jennifer Renaud. I actually found it in a library book, a digital version of the library book. And so I'm going to be using that pattern. I'll also put the name of the book below. So like if you want a copy of it from your library, you can check that out. But I figured this would be a good way to use a bunch of my Lion Brand respun, which is recycled polyester. And so I'm going to use this colorway, which is parchment. And then there is a really great kind of piney green, and then aspeny green, and then there's a really rich burgundy. And so I'm going to make 3 coordinating stockings, one for my husband, one for my daughter, and one for myself. And so that way we have Christmas stockings that I handmade. So I thought that that would be really nice. The last project that I have planned is a wild card, which means it may or may not get done. But I applied to test a sweater. I'm not going to say the designer in case I don't get chosen or anything like that, but I did apply to test a sweater that would have been due in like mid-December. And so if I do get selected, I'm going to have that. But if I don't get selected, I have another option for myself. I'm going to be doing, if I don't get selected to do that test, the Homegirl Sweater by Megan Shaimes. Yeah, the Homegirl Sweater by Megan Shaimes. And I'm going to be using this yarn. This is AceKreates yarn, Vitellana Oasis, in the colorway Casablanca. It's a 50% alpaca wool, 25% Peruvian Highland merino wool blend, and then a 25% Surrey alpaca. It's DK weight, so there's 252 yards in a skein. I have a bunch of this yarn, and so I guess I must have gotten it on sale when they were doing like a clearance before they shut down. And it is a single ply, or spun, like roving yarn, not my favorite, but I'm going to do a crochet project, and it looks like it actually was spun really well. So hopefully I won't have issues. But I thought it would be a good way to get a good chunk of this yarn out of my stash. I really love the way it looks and feels, so I'm hoping I like the end product. So that's my wild card. It's either going to be a test knit or a crochet, not a test knit, a test crochet. I'm not a test knitter, I'm a test crocheter. It's either going to be a test crochet sweater, or I'm going to try to do the Homegirl Sweater by Jennifer Shaimes. Yeah. As you can see, I have a good chunk of my fall plans well underway, and I'm excited about some of the new cast-ons that I'm going to be partaking in the next few weeks. And so I'm hopeful that I will get all of these projects done by mid-December. As always, you'll be able to check out my progress on these in my monthly roundup podcast episodes, like my regular podcast episodes. And so you'll be able to see how I'm doing on these projects and how far I get. But I'm really hopeful that I'll be able to do that. If you liked this video, check out a few of my other videos, and be sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Consider subscribing to my channel if you have not subscribed. It really helps me out, and it helps others find my channel and my content. I consider myself an advanced beginner intermediate crocheter and a baby knitter, and I'm really loving sharing my journey as I grow as a fiber artist and as I make things, and I go to yarn festivals or fiber shows and road trips and yarn tours and yarn crawls. And so I really love bringing you along and experiencing things that I experience. And so give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Thank you so much, friends. I will see you in the next video. Bye now.